1605 Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes.
1678 Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan.
1719 Robinson Crusoe by Daniel Defoe.
1726 Gulliver's Travels by Jonathan Swift.
1748 Clarissa by Samuel Richardson.
1749 Tom Jones by Henry Fielding.
1759 Tristram Shandy by Laurence Sterne.
1782 Dangerous Liaisons by Pierre Choderlos de Laclos.
1815 Emma by Jane Austen.
1818 Frankenstein by Mary Shelley.
1818 Nightmare Abbey by Thomas Love Peacock.
1839 The Charterhouse of Parma by Stendhal.
1842 The Black Sheep by Honore de Balzac.
1840 For the Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas.
1845 Sybil by Benjamin Disraeli.
1847 Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte.
1847 Vanity Fair by William Makepeace Thackeray.
1847 Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte.
1850 David Copperfield by Charles Dickens.
1850 The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne.
1851 Moby Dick by Herman Melville.
1856 Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert.
1859 The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins.
1865 Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll.
1868 Little Women by Louisa M. Alcott.
1875 The Way We Live Now by Anthony Trollope.
1876 Daniel Deronda by George Eliot.
1877 Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy.
1880 The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoevsky.
1881 The Portrait of a Lady by Henry James.
1884 Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain.
1886 The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson.
1889 Three Men in a Boat by Jerome K. Jerome.
1890 The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde.
1892 The Diary of a Nobody by George Grossmith.
1895 Jude the Obscure by Thomas Hardy.
1903 The Call of the Wild by Jack London.
1903 The Riddle of the Sands by Erskine Childers.
1904 Nostromo by Joseph Conrad.
1908 The Wind in the Willows by Kenneth Grahame.
1915 The Good Soldier by Ford Madox Ford.
1915 The Rainbow by D. H. Laurence.
1915 The 39 Steps by John Buchan.
1922 Ulysses by James Joyce.
1924 A Passage to India by E. M. Forster.
1925 Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf.
1925 The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald.
1925 The Trial by Franz Kafka.
1927 In Search of Lost Time by Marcel Proust.
1927 Men Without Women by Ernest Hemingway.
1930 As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner.
1932 Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
1932 Journey to the End of the Night by Louis Ferdinand Céline.
1938 Scoop by Evelyn Waugh.
1938 USA by John Dos Passos.
1939 The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler.
1945 The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford.
1947 The Plague by Albert Camus.
1949-1984 by George Orwell.
1951 The Catcher in the Rye by J. D. Salinger.
1951 Malone Dies by Samuel Beckett.
1952 Charlotte's Web by E.B. White.
1952 Wise Blood by Flannery O'Connor.
1954 Lord of the Flies by William Golding.
1954 Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis.
1954 The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien.
1955 Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov.
1955 The Quiet American by Graham Greene.
1957 On the Road by Jack Kerouac.
1958 Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe.
1959 The Tin Drum by Gunter Grass.
1960 To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee.
1961 Catch-22 by Joseph Heller.
1961 The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie by Muriel Spark.
1964 Herzog by Saul Bellow.
1967 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Marquez.
1971 Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor.
1974 The Bottle Factory Outing by Beryl Bainbridge.
1974 Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy by John le Carre.
1975 The Periodic Table by Primo Levi.
1977 Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison.
1978 The Book of Laughter and Forgetting by Milan Kundera.
1979 A Bend in the River by V.S. Naipaul.
1979 If on a Winter's Night a Traveler by Italo Calvino.
1979 The Executioner's Song by Norman Mailer.
1980 Housekeeping by Marilyn Robinson.
1980 Waiting for the Barbarians by J. M. Cutsey.
1981 Lanark by Alasdair Gray.
1982 The BFG by Roald Dahl.
1984 Money by Martin Amis.
1986 An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro.
1986 The New York Trilogy by Paul Auster.
1988 Oscar and Lucinda by Peter Carey.
1990 Haroun and the Sea of Stories by Salman Rushdie.
1990 LA Confidential by James Elroy.
1991 Wise Children by Angela Carter.
1995 Northern Lights by Philip Pullman.
1997 American Pastoral by Philip Roth.
2001 Atonement by Ian McEwan.
2001 Austerlitz by W. G. Sebald.